Good afternoon and welcome to our Oak Bend Medical Center Happy Hour podcast. My name is Donna and I am your host. I hope by participating in these podcasts, you can take away valuable information that can enrich your life. We are always looking for topics of interest, so please email us at oakbendhappyhourpodcast@obmc.org. Today, I want to welcome Pastor Leroy Hodge Jr. For the past 15 years, Pastor Hodge has worked as an advocacy specialist for Child Advocate of Fort Bend. He is also a part of WINGS program, helping foster children ages 14 and up to develop life skills and developing a transitional plan to exit the foster care system. Outside of work, Pastor Hodge has been the pastor of Prairie Grove Baptist Church for 10 years. Leroy has a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology from Texas A&M University, a Master's of Theology, and a Master's of Divinity, and soon to complete his PhD in Global Leadership for Faith International University and Seminary. Leroy believes that success is not determined by what one achieves in life, but is determined by the obstacles that one overcomes. Welcome, Pastor Hodge.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we asked you to come on because you do a lot of emotional support and a lot of spiritual support, and you're dealing with emotions all the time. COVID has changed our world as we know it, and we see people struggling with it all the time. Do you have any advice on how we deal with this pandemic emotionally and spiritually, and what we can do to find that midway normal?
One of the things that you can do, I'll start it with from the emotional aspect. Practice what is called mindfulness. Kind of be aware of how you feel, and in the moment be present, pay attention and slow down. And I know it's hard to do because we live in such a busy world. And then just be aware of where you are and what you're doing. And then a couple of things that you can do when you feel yourself getting overwhelmed. You could slow down and breathe. You can do meditating, journaling, and exercising. And I know it's a tough time right now because a lot of us feel isolated and restricted, from our normal way of life. But we have to find ways to adjust and adapt for our own emotional well-being. And then from a spiritual perspective, I believe that is an opportunity for a lot of us to kind of assess where we are with God and kind of get back to our foundational principles that we've been taught and spend private time, devotional time, reading, praying, and things of that nature. And if you need something devotional to do, there are plenty of places online, books that you can find for devotional time that you can read, and then connect with the church online, and then find ways to help other people in this time.
Okay, great advice. In our hospital, in our community, but in the hospital, first of all, it's kind of hard to say, but we've dealt with more death and tragedy than we have in many years. I mean, we always have death and tragedy coming in the hospital. But at one time, I remember a physician standing there so bewildered because he had 11 death certificates to fill out. And in that, with those 11 death certificates came 11 families that were just as distraught because they weren't there to say goodbye. Funerals have been limited. How do we help these nurses, doctors, families, and patients make sense of all this?
I think at this time, we need to focus on the fact that people die every day, and I'm not trying to minimize it. I just think that because we have slowed down and we're kind of isolated, and it's a constant reminder, on the news every day, I think we tend to focus on it a little bit more. But people die every day, and then we just have to deal with the reality of death, that it's a part of life, and that all of us have to prepare, for death, and then also enjoy the time that you have with one another, from the aspect of family members being able to stay connected to one another, FaceTime, Zoom, and things of that nature. I believe that I have seen on the news a couple of situations where someone had COVID, but they had their phone and they were able to have some last phone calls and talk to their family members. So that's a way to stay connected. But just to deal with the reality of death and try to properly grieve. And I know it's harder, because we're disconnected and we can't come together and love on each other and have compassion with one another, but we have to find whatever way we can to stay connected to each other.
Families are very isolated and unable to meet. I know I haven't had face-to-face interaction with my family since December, essentially. We haven't sat down with a meal, and that was a big part of our family. Socializing has changed. We can't gather in places, large groups, restaurants. Weddings have been limited. How does this whole socialization, and I heard a Birdie about your family. You have children in college that don't live here, and y'all stay very connected. And I don't mean to put your personal business out there, but I find it to be very inspiring if you'd like to share and then maybe help us who aren't as accustomed to doing those things. How do we acclimate to that?
So one of the things I think that we need to focus on during this time is social media. And all of us know that, things can be negative and positive, but it's just based on the way that you use it. And so social media can be a great outlet to stay connected. Some of the things that my family and I have done, we've had family night, family meetings where we FaceTime each other and everyone's on the meeting and everyone, is connected. And then we've also had like a karaoke night where we've had a contest. Everyone had to do their different song and we have a winner and we have different awards and prizes. You can do family bingo night, family card night, just FaceTime, Zoom, just things to stay connected. And I think that there are ways that we can, but we just have to be willing to get out of our box because a lot of times we're just comfortable doing things one way. And one thing the pandemic has taught me is to stretch and grow and learn to do things differently. And it can be done. You just have to put the time and the effort into it.
So Pastor Hodge, just to digress just a little bit, who wins karaoke night?
My daughter probably, or myself. No, I'm playing.
Okay.
Probably my wife or my daughter. Those are the heavy singers in my family. Probably my wife or my daughter.
Okay, I was wondering if you were going to claim victory to karaoke night.
No, I let them have that.
Okay. We have seen a lot of suicide attempts come in, a lot of child abuse, which you work in that field, and a lot of unhappy things. What do we tell our community and the people that are listening when you're angry or when you're feeling that low? What do you do? How do you keep this from happening?
I guess you have to find a support and be able to reach out to people and know that there are people there that are willing to listen to you. And if you find yourself angry or feeling like you want to do something to yourself, find a way to express it. You could do it through writing, singing, telephone call. Any kind of way to kind of vent and get it out of you. And I think a lot of people during this time feel isolated again and feel like they have no one to talk to, but you have to stay connected. I don't care how strong you are in this time, at some point or another, emotionally and mentally, it's all impacted us in some way. But we have to stay connected to people and we have to remember that we have support and then reach out to those resources and support that we have.
Pastor, some people live needing compassion and affection and a hug. And, Pastor likes hugs too. How do we do that now? How do we fit that emotion into it? Because that is a touching emotion and we're told not to touch.
Right. And I know, you can still make contact with people from the standpoint of fist bumping, elbow bumping. That's one of the things that we do at church because we used to do fellowship and everyone would go around and hug. So it's either a fist bump, elbow bump, or, air high five, somewhere to stay connected, then even making eye contact with people and slowing down to talk with them and just spending time with them to let them know that you're paying attention to what they're saying. And so it's just adjusting the way that you normally do things, even though you can't be, touchy feeling like you used to, just finding ways to adapt, to communicate with each other. And you can even write notes, thank you cards. I mean, all kinds of things. You just have to try to think outside the box of ways to show compassion and way to stay connected and to be able to communicate with each other.
I know that Prairie Grove Baptist Church is very compassionate about their community and about their parishioners, and that y'all kind of gather together in a way of checking on each other and always making sure everyone is okay. How did you start that, and do you recommend people do that for other people?
The way that we started, it kind of started after Hurricane Harvey, because our church was impacted in a way that we lost everything. And one of the things that I decided is that I didn't ever want my members to be in a place where I wasn't able to help them, and to come up with an emergency plan and try to be able to address issues when there's a disaster or something. And so that's kind of how it started. And then we developed a pantry where we have things available for our parishioners. And so we have a checklist and a point person who every week checks on our people to make sure that we have what they need, and if we don't have it, to find a way to get it, so we can support them and assist them with what they need. And so that's kind of how it developed. And so from week to week, we just try to make sure that all of our members who stand in need of something are able to receive what we can provide for them through our church.
That is fabulous. And that doesn't have to be limited to a church. A neighborhood could do that. Correct. And check on people that are isolated or anything else. And it's a good way to kind of take your mind off your own problems.
Right.
In your opinion, and I know we've talked a lot about staying connected and reaching out, but what if you don't have anybody to reach out to?
I think that you can reach out to someone through social media again. There are a lot of churches, organizations that have live feeds. They do things week to week. And I believe that we've all been created to have a desire for community, and all of us want to be connected to something. And even if it's not on an intimate level, with people that we know, there are different outlets for us to connect to something and be able to be provided that need of community.
Going back to our nurses and physicians, I have to say we have some of the best. I've watched them in some pretty trying times. And I've watched them wear the masks and the PPE and totally get involved with the patient and the family. And they'll take off their masks and they have blisters and rashes, and they're still wanting to take care of patients. They're worried about their families. They're very stoic. They keep that brave front, but you can see the stress on them. I watched one day, I think they had 3 codes back to back, and you could just see them melting. How do you help the staff and the physicians?
Well, I think it goes back to the why, the how, and the what. And they have to remember that they have a sense of purpose in being where they are, but remember that it's bigger than them and they're just a piece of the puzzle. And to try to find a way to disconnect when they are taking a break, from being in the room, the trauma area, and what's going on in the hospital, trying to find a way to disconnect, and then know that they have a sense of purpose, know why they're there, and understand that there are just some situations that are beyond their control, and they have to get to the place where they embrace that they don't have any control, but they're there to be a servant or to help people in the time of their need. But at the same time, be able to disconnect and understand that it's bigger than them, and kind of go from there. And then find resources. Don't try to be stoic and deal with it all on your own, but find ways to have an outlet to talk about it, because if they don't, at some point down the line, it's going to come up emotionally and create an issue for them, and probably start affecting them in the work that they do.
It's not just nurses and doctors, it's all the staff, it's first responders, it's clergy who take on this big burden.
Mm-hmm.
And venting is probably very hard because you're made to kind of listen to people and heal people. So healing yourself is a little more difficult, isn't it?
Correct. And I believe that I was taught that every pastor needs a pastor and they need someone to talk to kind of get it off of themselves. And so everyone needs to find at least one person where they can vent and they can talk to and they can get it out, instead of holding it in and packing it around and trying to deal with it on their own. And so, I mean, just find someone that you can connect to, that you can talk to and get it out. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, as I said, you can write it out. You can find different methods of kind of venting and releasing yourself from those emotions that you're feeling from a stress standpoint.
So I've asked this at my last podcast, and I'm going to ask you this. Where do you see us in 2021 with all the craziness going on and in what's the new norm? And do you have any idea how you're going to see what your opinion will be of where we go from here?
I just think it's an opportunity, to do things differently. And a lot of times with obstacles, we look at it from a negative perspective, but I think we have to be positive and see it as an opportunity to do things differently, to make a change for the better. And I believe I can say for myself, this pandemic has made me better as a person because it's made me get out of my comfort zone and try to do things that I was not doing before, and to do it in a more efficient way. And so I just view it as an opportunity to make change, to move forward, progress, and I believe the sky's the limit.
I totally agree with you. COVID has had its challenges, but I also think COVID has been good for us all in a way, because it has made us dig deep within us and figure things out and do things a little differently. It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
And I can I say something else in regards to that? I just think that it's made us focus back on what's important. And I think we never need to lose sight of that. Families are sitting down, eating dinner together. People are talking that haven't talked in years. And we're finding a way to stay connected and focus on family, just do the right thing. And so I think that, that's always a plus, always a positive when we get back to doing things, in a simple way. I think sometimes we make life harder, but just get back to that simple nature of life where we value the right things and we prioritize the right thing.
I totally agree with you. Pastor, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us and all you do for the community and helping people be a better them. I do know that you have a social media Bible study in church. If people don't have someone and feel like they need to reach out, they can go on Facebook to Prairie Grove Baptist Church in Richmond?
No, in East Bernard.
East Bernard, I'm sorry. In East Bernard, Texas, and join. It's a very inspirational, very, very nice service. And I would suggest everybody, if you're looking for a place to go on, please do so. Pastor, again, thank you for joining us, and a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Beginning now, set an intention and a relentless focus on living your life as the greatest person you can be in all situations. Please join us next week as we discuss follow-up to COVID. What's next? Have a great day.